All right, team, what's up? Happy Thursday. I am Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE, and always thrilled to be here on a Leadership Thursday. I hope this finds you doing very well here in mid-December, heading towards the holidays. I hope everybody's finishing off 2022 strong. So I want to chat about payment models. Before I do, a few comments on upcoming courses. So the first, 12 days of January, we have an avalanche of our online courses firing up. So we have January 3rd, Rehab of the Injured Runner. January 4th, Older Adult Essential Foundations. January 9th, we have all three of these courses: primary care, persistent pain, and fitness athlete pregnancy and postpartum. And then January 12th, we have older adult advanced concepts. So if you're looking to jump into one of our 8-week online courses with ICE, the first 2 weeks of January, we have a huge amount of kickoffs for those courses. So ptonice.com, go check them out. All the live courses, all the online courses, it all lives there. All right, let's talk about this. Payment models, it's time for another and approach. Let's open this conversation by saying the reason we're having it is that we're seeing a lot of exciting growth in the cash-based or out-of-network space. And there's a lot of very good reasons for everybody to get really excited about that. Not just folks who are trying to go into that space, but everybody. Let me explain. The growth of the cash-based out-of-network space is incredibly important for our profession as a whole. Here's a few ways that it's moving us forward that are extremely poignant, and I'll explain more as we add on the insurance part of this conversation. In the cash-based out-of-network space, PTs have to sell, an area we've never been great at, that we've always known we've had to improve. PTs have to sell. To do so, they've got to really believe in their value. They've got to actually believe they are worth 125, 150, 175, whatever it is per session. They've got to believe that. They then have to have the savvy, the marketing savvy, to find customers in their area who also believe that, whose values resonate with the kind of care that we provide, that they want to pay that. And then we need to be able to articulate our value to those people. This has not been a strength of rehab providers, certainly not physical therapists. This ability to say, darn it, we are worth it. Find people who also believe that and articulate that value to those people. Because there isn't somebody else covering services in this space, that has to happen. In developing that skill in our profession is a quantum leap forward and a much needed one. Okay, number two, the cash-based out-of-network space is establishing a much more level playing field with physicians and other providers, because we're not getting a lot of patients from other providers. So we're not seeing their patients, we're seeing our patients, and we're often collaborating on a much more level playing field. I can only speak to Onward, which is the group of clinics that I'm affiliated with, in that we get less than 5% of our patients from referrals. So we're not seeing a lot of other people's patients. We are going and finding our own patients. So as we're collaborating on these folks when needed, when we refer out, or when we're asked for an opinion, it is much more of a level playing field. We're truly becoming that alternative option to that mainstream medical system. That level playing field, that autonomy, is something we've been striving for forever. But if we're always at the bottom end of a system feeding down to us from above, it's a little bit of lip service saying that we're autonomous. When we're driving our own patients and truly collaborating and using, expertise from others, that is a much more authentic type of independent practice. So that's happening in this space. Number three, the cash-based out-of-network space is getting people used to paying top dollar for quality physical therapy. If we're being really honest, most patients equate the value of PT to whatever they pay for a copay. I mean, that's what they pay, right? They come in and they get their session and they might pay their $40 or what have you. And to them, that's what PT is worth. If you don't believe me, try and charge them more, right? See how they feel when all of a sudden they have to come up with $150. They don't feel it's worth coming out of pocket for that much yet. However, nationwide, out-of-network practices are changing that. People are getting used to saying, well, I pay $150 to go to PT, but I do it because I value it tremendously. So it's getting people used to saying PT is worth that much. This next part is why this is important for everybody, not just people in the out of network space. This is showing that it can be done this way. Now, importantly, that doesn't mean it has to be done this way. But if people are willing to pay that, in the value of PT in the general public, the perception of it gets much higher, and folks say, oh, it's definitely worth paying $150 or what have you. It doesn't mean that you have to go the cash-based route, but knowing that you could, because this new avenue is becoming viable, is massively empowering. Because this means that you could walk away from any other relationship because you know you have that other option available. It's viable. You could walk away from insurance contracts. You could walk away from a job that isn't paying you appropriately because you say, look, everybody else is doing it this way. I can probably go, and if I can get my skills to a level that can create the kind of value perception that others are doing in my community, I can go charge that appropriate amount, and I can live independent of these people who aren't respecting my value. Just because you can doesn't mean you have to, but it's incredibly empowering to know that you can. All right. Those are really exciting areas that cash-based out-of-network practice is moving us forward. But there are still so many areas that in-network practices are massively clutch, invaluable in their own right. Number one, many people around the country choose jobs based upon the quality of the insurance they get, and they should have the option to use that. Right? This is true for my hometown back at Iron Mountain, Michigan. The areas that most folks work are the mill system. We've got some really good mills in town, really big systems that offer very good insurance, school systems. Those kind of things are where a lot of folks are working. They're working there because the benefits are phenomenal. Those people deserve to be able to have an option to use those benefits. If we can create quality PT options for that, that helps more people. Number two, highly medicalized or post-op folks benefit greatly from an in-network option. You have to be a lot more medicalized nowadays to benefit from hitting your deductible. Remember, it used to be $2,000, then it was $5,000, and now it's $10,000, right? Seems to keep going up. But still, some folks who have a lot of medical stuff going on will still hit that. And when they do, being able to leverage their insurance once they meet that deductible is the most affordable option for them. And if they have all this medical stuff going on, they probably need that affordable option for quality physical therapy. Number three, as physical therapy providers, we can't opt out of federal contracts. And those are some of the people who need our services the most. When you think about Medicare and Medicaid and things that we can't opt out of, which I'm aware that is strange and it's different for physicians, that's a whole nother conversation. But right now we can't. So we want to make sure those options in every community are in place. Finally, insurances should not get away with not paying for physical therapy. We shouldn't let them off the hook, right? Like if everybody abandons the in-network model, right, one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to drag insurances back into it and force them to pay. Love that idea. But in the interim, while we're creating more of a presence in the out-of-network space, we're probably not there yet. So the idea of saying, all right, insurances, you're good now, we're not going to ever charge you, that is probably not the right short-term play. Might be the right long-term play, more on that down the road, but it's probably not the right short-term play. So those are all areas where the presence of quality in-network clinics is really, really important. Team, here's what I'm trying to get you to understand. You really need two things. Number one, you need a payment system that allows you to do your best work most of the time. And I say most because last time I was on here, when I did an episode about what perfect physical therapy looks like, a lot of people kind of freaked out and said, well, that's unreasonable. Or do you really see every patient like that? No. Over the past 10 years, I've seen people in a wide variety of environments. It's rarely perfect, but it doesn't mean that the idea of perfect shouldn't exist. So we have something to shoot for, so we get excited when we do hit it. It's critical that we do put a flag in the ground and say, this is what perfect looks like. Now, from a payer system, we need to think about a payment system that allows you to behave in that way or very close to it for most of your patients. Number two, you want as many of those payment options as possible. because that's what's going to allow us to meet patients, more patients, the maximum amount of patients where they're at as often as possible. We don't want to limit the ways that people can access quality physical therapy services. So we need payers that respect us enough that we can practice in the way that we believe in, as close to perfect as possible, as often as possible. But we want as many of those as possible, right? So people can get to us through as many avenues as lanes as possible, because we believe that we are a solution for so much and we're being underutilized. That's what you need. Insurance is not the enemy. Payers who don't respect our value and force us into models that burn therapists out and give patients a mediocre experience, that is the enemy. And yes, oftentimes that is insurances, right? Some of them. So we need to hold them to that. We need to know who the enemy is. It is not the global idea of insurance. It's those that won't acknowledge our value. The solution, team, the solution to all of this is to increase the value that patients perceive in our care, so that if necessary, they would pay out of pocket for it. So we'll always have that viable route, right? Again, just because you can doesn't mean you have to, but increase the value they perceive. So if needed, they would pay out of pocket. So we've always got that option. But then invite insurance companies, at least in some of our models, to remain relevant by actually covering the people they claim to cover in a way that respects the value that we know and the patient perceives. Team, this is the answer. Because if enough patients believe in our value in that way, we'll always have viable practices, because we can always go straight to them. But we can still offer it to insurances and say, look, your patient's going to pay this. They know what we're worth, but you claim to cover them. You should really be paying this. And if you want to remain relevant, I recommend that you do. The more times we can put insurances in that position, the more they'll say, well, I got to give it to you, right? I mean, at scale, you all are demanding this. It's clear that you're worth it and our customer wants it. We need to step up. That's the answer. If the patient will always pay it, we're always viable. If insurances will also pay it, we can ease the burden on the patient and reach more people from more avenues. That's what we're going for. It's not or, it's and. We've got to know what we're worth. We've got to be able to sell what we're worth to people and insurances. Then we have to maximize the amount of avenues people have to receive quality care. Team, that's the big win. I've got all sorts of ideas down the road on how we can sort of engineer this, but that's what we're going for. It's what you need. It's available through most routes, and it's how to meet the consumer in as many places as possible. That's the big win, team. Hope it makes some sense. ptonice.com. Hit me up with any questions. Last time we had a lot of dialogue on this conversation. Happy to go back after it and have those conversations today. I'll be around. Cheers, everybody. Enjoy your Thursday.